There is so much chaos in Donald Trump's White House that it makes it impossible to cover every story, and that is exactly what they want. They want us distracted. They want to make sure we can't call out all of their corruption, and that is exactly what just happened this week with one of the most underreported but most important stories that we've seen come out of this Trump administration. Not just an illegal act that they took, but an act of war in blowing up what was allegedly a drug boat. Donald Trump didn't inform Congress. Donald Trump has committed an illegal act, and Donald Trump doesn't want you paying attention to it. And it is the reason that when Stephen Miller was confronted over Donald Trump's latest illegal action, he just ran away from the press. We are going to get into it all and what it means for this administration. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video. And if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into the moment which Miller ran away from the press, I want to start with the context of what happened with Donald Trump's latest criminal act. And that comes to us from Chris Hayes.
After days of speculation about his health, the president showed up for a much-anticipated press conference yesterday to make some big announcement. He was moving a military command from Colorado to Alabama. But amidst the usual Trump chaos, he made another announcement that got kind of lost about a military strike in international waters.
We just, over the last few minutes, literally shot out a boat, a drug-carrying boat, a lot of drugs in that boat. We have a lot of drugs pouring into our country, coming in for a long time. And we just, these came out of Venezuela and coming out very heavily from Venezuela. A lot of things are coming out of Venezuela, so we took it out.
The president later posted a video of that strike to social media. Trump said he had ordered, quote, a kinetic strike against positively identified Tren de Aragua narco-terrorists. He added that 11 people on the boat were killed. Trump claimed the boat was transporting illegal narcotics heading to the United States. Now, here's a map of where the United States is. That small boat was attacked off the coast of Venezuela, which is over 1,000 nautical miles away from here. The United States was obviously well out of range of that boat. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, on the other hand, defended the strike by saying the vessel's destination was probably Trinidad or another country in the Caribbean, which, of course, makes more sense on the map. I mean, Trinidad's only 10 miles from Venezuela by sea. But again, that too is more than 1,000 miles from the U.S. mainland. Who knows where the drugs, if they were there, were going to go next? This morning, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth was doing a victory lap, promising more military strikes on narco-traffickers, narco-terrorists. But now, as we learn more details of the attack, I have to say, this is an enormous scandal that is unfolding right in front of us. This civilian, non-military boat, even if they were committing a crime, was not struck in self-defense. No weapons were evident. Whoever struck it, and the U.S. has shared no details of that, didn't try to disable the engines or to board the craft. They just summarily killed everybody on board. As a Notre Dame law professor told the Washington Post, the strike violated international law. The U.S. is not in armed conflict with Venezuela or its criminal elements. This is exactly the kind of operation that, if it existed in a Tom Clancy novel or movie, would be getting covered up because all the principals in the film would know it was illegal. I mean, it certainly seems like extrajudicial murder to me. And again, that's the case even if everything the administration is saying is true. But why would anyone assume that what they say is true? These are the very same people that falsely claimed a man with an autism awareness tattoo and a makeup stylist and a soccer player and a singer were dangerous members of the same Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang when they grabbed them off the street and shipped them to the Salvadoran gulag. Now, in those cases, Trump's government tried to be the judge and the jury, and now they are executioner too. Whatever pretext this administration may claim, this looks, for all the world, like a just flagrant violation of domestic U.S. law and international law. And there needs to be answers to how and why this happened. And I'll talk to Senator Chris Van Hollen about that next.
The ways in which Donald Trump has used and abused the military during his administration are almost unthinkable, but very strategic. Donald Trump wants to pretend that he's strong. That's why it's now the Department of War again. And Donald Trump wants to exercise force in a political manner. He doesn't want checks and balances on his police state. And that is why he is not going to inform Congress when he makes these criminal acts. And it's why Stephen Miller didn't want to respond to any questions about this action after giving a BS reason for why it took place.
For generations, we used our military to engage in action against terrorists in the Middle East and in Africa, while leaving unharmed the terrorists in our own hemisphere who are responsible for so much more American deaths, so many more American deaths, who have spilled so much blood across the Western Hemisphere, who have bereaved so many parents and families, and who have contributed to such a horrific cycle and just nonstop, relentless surge of violence in our cities. Every major city in America is suffering from cartel violence. Even the U.S.-based gangs are working directly with these cartels. The drugs, the guns, the weapons, the cash, the organization. We've been occupied by cartels for far too long. President Trump is finally allowing and directing the United States military to use its authorities under the Constitution to defend America from the terrorist organizations that have run free for too long in our own hemisphere. Thank you all. Thank you for the question.
On foreign policy.
Are you sending ICE operations there today?
The guy who ran on no new wars is now deciding to bring back the war on terror and the war on drugs in a combination that doesn't actually look to solve either issue or explain why Donald Trump thinks he gets to be judge, jury, and executioner on international waters. There was no reason that Donald Trump has outlined for this strike. It is much like the unconstitutional strike he made on Iran. And how did that turn out? Was it a success? No. Was Congress informed? Nope. Was it days on end until any real intel was provided to Democrats in Congress? Yup. Delay and distract as much as possible. That is what Donald Trump wants out of these operations. Again, this was supposed to be the no new wars administration, and there is no purpose to the action that they've taken here. Donald Trump just wants to be able to push the envelope again and again and again and see how far he can get things until he decides, well, there really shouldn't be any checks on the military. There's so much dangerous stuff happening. And that is exactly why Stephen Miller made the statement that he did and then ran away from the press. He didn't want follow-up questions. He didn't want to have to explain. This is all about narratives. It's not about any ultimate policy goal, any ultimate policy outcome that serves the public. This is about narratives. And the same thing is happening domestically as well, where Donald Trump has taken over the military in D.C., he's taken over the police force in D.C., and Donald Trump has decided, what is he going to do? He's going to be in charge of a police state because he says it's going to bring down the crime that is apparently so rampant. Well, that's not the case. And doing so will not bring down crime. It's not going to. It is not a long-term solution unless you want to live in a police state. But that's not what America is. And that is why Donald Trump is trying to do it everywhere he can to change your perception of how you should live your life. He's trying to do it in Chicago, and we saw Senator Tammy Duckworth talk about that and Donald Trump's illegal strike right here.
I will ask them what else are they planning on doing, because we are not going to allow them to bring detainees onto Great Lakes Naval Base and detain folks there. I would want to see exactly what type of ammunition that they're going to be using as well, basically to hold them accountable and let them know that we are watching what they're doing. Overall, the city of North Chicago and the surrounding communities have made it clear to their law enforcement officers that they will not cooperate with DHS and ICE unless there is a federal warrant, not one of these fake ICE warrants, but a federal warrant, and that they're not going to participate and support ICE actions in basically harassing and intimidating everyday people on the streets of our cities.
Let me ask you about something that former Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson said today in a New York Times article. He served as Pentagon General Counsel before he was Homeland Security Secretary for President Obama. He noted that Congress had not authorized force against drug cartels and that the Coast Guard and Navy had long interdicted suspected drug smuggling boats. Quote, here the president appears to be invoking his amorphous constitutional authority to kill low-level drug couriers on the high seas with no due process, arrest, or trial. Quote, viewed in isolation, labeling drug cartels as terrorists and invoking the national interest to use the U.S. military to summarily kill low-level drug couriers is pretty extreme. Do you believe it's legal?
No, it's not legal. I also think that this is just the first step towards him potentially setting the groundwork to do something within U.S. territory. So he's doing it in international waters now, but what is he? What's next? An American in our territorial waters on U.S. soil? What exactly is next? I agree with the discussion that's already been ongoing. This president is setting the conditions so that he can actually unilaterally occupy the streets of our cities and interfere in the next election, do what he wants. And I am absolutely disgusted with my Republican colleagues who, on top of confirming the likes of Pete Hegseth and Secretary Kennedy, are not holding them accountable. We have a chance here to stop them. I hope that my colleagues will step forward and stop them, but let's see what they're going to do. So far, all they've done has been collaborators and co-conspirators in the Trump attempts to basically undermine the basic law and order of our nation.
Senator, do you hear from any whistleblowers or people concerned inside the military?
Oh, significantly. I served in the Illinois National Guard for 17 years and in the reserves for another 6 years on top before that. The military does not want to be used in this way. And I do want to say something to the folks who are watching. Please respect the men and women of the National Guard. They are being used as a political pawn by this president. They don't have the option of saying no. And so we need to make sure that we understand that the National Guard is being abused and disused. They should be out there preparing and training for their wartime mission or to respond to natural disasters, when a tornado hits southern Illinois. But instead, they're being used to intimidate fellow citizens and people on the streets of our cities. And simply that is an abuse of the National Guard and the men and women who swore an oath to defend this country.
Senator Duckworth, every word of everything you said today, thank you so much for all of it.
Donald Trump is in a crisis of Donald Trump is in a crisis of weakness right now. Not to say that the only reason he is taking the military action he is, illegally by the way, is because he wants to project out strength. It's part of his larger authoritarian takeover, but it is certainly part of it. You don't think Donald Trump considers all the Kenkel conversation when he's making these moves? You don't think in the back of his little pea brain he's saying, I'll show him that I'm the big, strong, tough guy. That's exactly what's happening. And that's why we got to call it out every single day on the show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.